So I am delighted to have today with us here at the Net Zero Nuclear Pavilion Angela Wilkinson, the Secretary General and CEO of the World Energy Council. Thank you for joining us, Angela.
Sama, it's a pleasure to be here. I always enjoy our conversations.
Thank you, it's great. So we are here at COP28. We saw each other last year at COP27. So what are your hopes and expectations for this COP here in Dubai?
So we conducted a poll of our members before we came here, and the general view is that this is the last significant moment to make adjustments to ensure that we get on track for avoiding climate change catastrophe. So I suppose that's the hope, is that we emerge from this COP with realistic hope that that is still possible. And for that, I think I'm looking forward to seeing how the agenda includes all solutions, includes all sectors, and starts to engage with the very thorny issue of how do we mobilize a whole of society response.
No pressure or anything, right?
No.
You have a few major goals. So there is sometimes these questions whether it's actually worth our while to convene these major climate change meetings. So what do you think? What do we get out of these big gatherings?
So, human beings are human beings. There's a lot we can do online. There's a whole generation of digital natives. But when we're discussing difficult issues, when we're discussing things where we might not necessarily agree on, it's really important just to be in the room together. When we want to start collaborations with strangers, it's helpful if we actually look each other in the eye. So we can collaborate at scale online, but to really start that collaboration, a catalytic change which requires strangers and others, not like us, to be at the table, it really does help if we sit in the room together.
Well, I agree with you. Sometimes there is nothing like the personal connection to truly actually reach an agreement on things. So now, World Energy Council, you've been working for many, many years to further cleaner and very well balanced energy mix. So what specifically are you doing in order to support the goals of this COP?
So our agenda for the last 4 years has been humanising energy to make faster, fairer and more far-reaching energy transitions happen. Everybody's talking about road maps. We're the road builders.
Right.
So you've got to have the road builders, and we think the road building community is not just the classic energy industry. It's not just the adjacent sectors. It actually has to involve more people and diverse communities. Women in energy transition, future energy leaders in energy transition, kids in energy transition, vulnerable and place-based communities, cities. We all have to understand the roles and the choices that we can make. So humanising energy is really about how do we collaborate at scale in ways that have been different from the old cooperation levers of market pricing or government negotiations. So here we have government negotiations, and I hope they're hugely successful. But once they conclude, we get into implementation.
Right.
And implementation is never straightforward. And this time round, it's implementation that involves everyone.
Exactly.
So how does everybody come on this journey? So we've deliberately been talking about humanising energy transitions.
No, I completely agree with you. Many times we, the average citizen, we are looking at our governments, our energy companies, our policymakers to actually do all the work, and obviously you're right, we do need to contribute and be part of this change. So I really applaud the work that you have been doing in humanizing energy.
It's particularly important at this moment because people are really concerned about inflationary outlooks and the possibility of global economic recession.
Right.
And we all know there's no such thing as a quick, fast and cheap energy transition. And societies are asking questions, who's going to pay for this and who's going to benefit? And so it's not possible just to keep talking about the falling costs of renewables. Renewables are going to need other energy friends to get to scale. They're going to need critical materials. They're going to need the connections to demand. They're going to need storage. And so we've really got to broaden this conversation.
Exactly.
Societies people who use energy, the demand side really needs to come to the table.
Exactly. No, I mean, and part of this humanizing, I mean, there are enormous differences in who, if we are looking at the global north, we have a set of priorities, which is decarbonizing and energy security, but we look at the global south, clearly there is different priorities which come through bringing lots and lots and lots of new energy.
I try to resist the global north, global south architecture because in one sense it can be divisive.
Right.
I mean, true, there are billions of people across the world who need more access to reliable, affordable and cheaper energy for better lives. They don't just need basic electricity connections, they need better lives. But I would also say that in the so-called wealthy countries now, we have such income disparities, and that we have, my piece is always about the allocative efficiency. We talk about capital efficiency in generating, a lot of money going into renewable generation, but it's not going into connecting the infrastructures, it's not going into the storage, it's not going into the other bits. So, my stereotypical comparison is, who is this energy for? Who is this energy transition for? And what is it for? Is it for wealthy men who want to drive electric vehicles at 0 to 60, which is fine? Or is it also for communities and mothers and for people who don't and can't afford access? And then what roles do we want to have? Do we want to think of women in energy as CEOs, or do we want to think of women in energy as designers, owners, operators, consumers of energy? And then what energy services would they want? So activating diversity in this energy transition is really, really important, and we have to activate it in ways which aren't the old stereotypical ways.
So we really need to get out of the box. So
yes,
I love that. So as you know, in this year, our net zero nuclear platform, we are trying to bring goals that are ambitious for the role of nuclear in the global Paris Agreement goals. So we are pushing, or we have a big ambition for 3 times nuclear capacity in 2050. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I came along to the World Nuclear Association annual meeting, and I did talk about what we were thinking from the World Energy Council perspective about the role of nuclear. So, as I've said, renewables will need other clean energy friends to get to scale, and nuclear provides a very interesting option for many countries. It's not a preferred option in some countries, but it doesn't mean to say that it can't lift in the climate space, right? There's a difference between preferences and realities.
Right.
On the other hand, nuclear also can't do it alone. So I encourage nuclear to come to the World Energy Congress as well and talk about redesigning energy for people and planet as part of the whole energy system.
Exactly.
And the other part that we're noticing around nuclear is that there's a whole new generation of technologies come up. There's a big buzz around small and modular reactors, the SMR technologies, and very few people understand there's 80 different technologies there. It tends to be, they tend to think about there's some form of big power station and then there's some form of small power station, but it's a whole plethora of different technologies with different possibilities and potentials. But to achieve that, to get that more modular nuclear future, we also have to think about the leap of scale, not a leap of faith, a leap of scale. What are the new business models? What are the new project development models? And still the old nutty question of what does this mean from the waste disposal perspective and the regulation perspective? I think there's a great future in things that don't have billion-dollar project overruns. That's the big problem, is big projects have big capital overruns. And so my hope is SMR is also part of a more community-centric energy future, not a capital-intensive only energy future.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Angela, for joining us, and have a lovely and hopefully very successful COP28.
Pleasure to be here. Best of luck.
Thanks.